dual presentation tonight, just to, again, our goal here in the series of 3 meetings that we've had and probably 6 or 7 public meetings on capital projects and revenue over the last 6-7 months is to try to educate the public on the reason for why the board is considering a food and beverage tax, and try to get some feedback from all of you as we lead up to some decision points for the board here in the next month or so. So we'll do this is our agenda for tonight. We're going to talk about why there's a need, how it'll be utilized, what the projected financial impact is, what the next steps are, and then allow some questions and feedback from all of you. So why is there a need? We want to continue to invest in our 20-year street program as we've done over the last, I guess it's been about 20 years. So a little less than that, about 18 years. So we have a fairly consistent and comprehensive street project or program. It's been in place for some time. We shifted from we used bonds for a period of about 10 years, and then we shifted to a pay-as-you-go approach. So we're not necessarily issuing bonds on a regular basis for the street program, but we want to make sure we're replacing streets about every 20 years. That's our goal. And we've been able to be consistent with that over the last few decades. So a couple examples of that, a little more grandiose projects that the scope increase was Hawthorne Corridor, a $4.5 million project from Hadley all the way down to West. And then the Crescent Boulevard project, that involved a roundabout and some real important pedestrian enhancements along the Crescent stretch there by the high school. We were able to get some grant funds for both of these projects, but pretty extensive projects that were pretty expensive. We also undertook some projects outside of the normal streetscape program. One being the police station, $13.5 million project. Obviously something that was a need in the community to have a modern police department for the next 50 to 75 years, and one that we're proud of. But that obviously tapped into our capital program, and will be, since we issued bonds for that project, we'll be paying for that for the next 17, 18 years. Another example is the Taylor Street underpass. All of you are aware that the Taylor Street underpass is closed for a period of time. We've got a couple phone calls on that. So we are proceeding ahead with this pedestrian tunnel that will certainly make it better for pedestrians and bicyclists to converse under the tracks in that area. A pretty highly used sidewalk will be taken out of the street and put in a safe area that feeds Glenbard West School, actually even feeds Ben Franklin School to some degree. So we're excited about that project. Again, we're able to get about $2 million in grants, but it's $1 million we had to come up with through our existing capital plan. So why is there a need? Our current 5-year capital plan shows a deficit, and Christina will kind of explain some of the revenue challenges there. The board will discuss the I guess, recommended 2019 capital budget on Monday night. So this kind of goes hand in hand with this food and beverage tax discussion. We want to sustain our existing street infrastructure plan, and we've got some additional projects and future needs that we'll spend most of the time talking about tonight. How will the proposed food and beverage tax be utilized? Oops. So here's a list of what is not budgeted or necessary planned for at this point in time. We have a CBD streetscape project, a parking garage project, a train station pedestrian underpass project, a civic center renovation project, and a Baker Hill access improvement project that are only partially or not funded at all at this point, and we'll go through those in some detail. The CBD streetscape. We've been working on this for a few years. We have not invested in the CBD streetscape since the 1980s. It's definitely overdue. We've got some sidewalk issues. Streets are ready for replacement. Improve the parkway trees. Do a lot of the things, if you've been to Wheaton lately, basically what they're doing in Wheaton, every 30 years you gotta replace that infrastructure and create some vitality in your downtown. We're also looking at all of our underground utilities at this point. We've got some 100-year sanitary and water mains that need to be replaced as well. we're going through an engineering process on that. So we're proceeding with phase 2 design later this year, most likely. We've got $8.5 million budgeted. We think we're $2 to $4 million short. Parking garage. We've been talking about parking in this town long before I arrived, probably for 3 or 4 decades. This board has spent 6-7 months looking at different locations, identifying where our needs are, where we have a demand, and have kind of circled around the Civic Center as the best location for a parking garage. We're looking at 4 or 5 levels. We're going to be hiring a design team to look further at this. We've got some concept plans that would add 300 to 375 new parking spaces. It would address commuter demand, customer demand, as well as the employees at the businesses. So we think long-term, we probably need one on the north side of the tracks, one on the south side of the tracks. North side is just going to have to hold off. We just don't have funding for that. But on the south side of the tracks, the Civic Center has been identified as the location.
And so just to clarify, that's not tearing down this building, that's putting it behind the Civic Center.
Yes.
Where your current parking lot is?
Correct. So this would be addressing a long-term goal in both the 2001 comprehensive plan and the 2011 downtown plan. And we're thinking it's a $10 to $15 million project. CBD, a Central Business District. I should stop using acronyms, I'm sorry. So the Central Business District train station and pedestrian underpass is another project we've been working on over the last 18 months. The board gave direction in January to complete a phase 1 design. So we've got some concept plans. That's one picture in front of you. It includes a new train station and a pedestrian underpass. About 10 years ago, there was a at-grade crossing right at the train station. Metro and UP took that out kind of in the cover of night. Didn't replace it. So now, if the train is directed to the other side of the tracks, commuters have to then go to Park or Main and run around to the other side of the tracks. Not a very safe environment. So in essence, UP and Metro shifted their liability issues to the village on Park and Main. Pedestrian underpass would be much preferred from a safety standpoint. We also believe there's an economic development benefit to it. You see people standing at the tracks with strollers or just doing whatever and can't get to the north side or the south side of the tracks to continue their shopping experience as a freight train rolls through. Well, if this pedestrian underpass is there, they can make their way to this underpass, go to the other side of the tracks. It opens up some parking opportunities. You can park on the south side of the tracks and walk to the theater. So we think it's a benefit for the greater downtown. However, it's extremely expensive. It's a $19 million project. We are trying to follow the Elmhurst model. They've received about $15 million in funds. We hope to be able to get that amount or similar amounts in grant funds to make this viable. Without that, this project probably will be delayed or not done. But we think the local match will be somewhere in the $2 to $5 million range, best case scenario. Civic Center renovation. A lot has gone on over the last year with this building. The police department has moved out, as I mentioned, and we've been brainstorming a number of ideas of how to fill the little space that is remained. We've partnered with the College of DuPage, and I'll cover that in a few minutes. But we're also haven't done any improvements in this building since the 90s, so we think there's some benefit in all of our customer-facing departments down on the first floor, so you can walk in, get your permit, go to the finance department, and not have to go up to the building and kind of work the maze. So we think there's some benefits in doing that. At the same time, it's going to free up some additional space for the College of DuPage and an interesting concept that we'll cover in a minute. And we also have a very aged HVAC system that needs to be replaced. The board recently approved some additional funding to accomplish that while we're in renovation mode. So we're excited about putting some money into this building and investing for the next 20 years in a historic building downtown. The COD concept is called Innovation DuPage. So it's a partnership between the village, the college, and the county, and it's an incubator accelerator concept. So it's a way that they can support new and growing businesses, give them some mentorship, some training, some cheap lease space, so that they can grow their business and the college is in a position to assist that process through the Innovation DuPage concept and through a small business development center that will be located in this building as well. So they're going to put $2.5 million into the building, and we like that concept not only from the investment standpoint in this building, but also having that located downtown. Those folks will be shopping in our stores and our restaurants and helping the downtown kind of grow, and then these businesses grow to a point where they then move on their own, and hopefully they'll choose Glen Ellen or the greater area, and we all win. So it's an interesting partnership. We're excited about it. We're hoping to get it kicked off next year.
What kind of businesses would you think you'd attract to that?
It would be, they've got 12 businesses already lined up, even without space identified. So it's all a lot of technology innovation companies, small kind of idea exchanges and things that you need a place to start and determine if it's a good concept or not. And that's the whole incubator and accelerator process. They're getting pretty popular all over the country and having COD. COD was looking for a place central to the county, near public transportation, in a high visible building in a downtown location. We were able to check all those boxes, and they're a couple miles from their campus, so that they're excited about it. And we wouldn't be running the Innovation Center. We'll leave it to the experts. We're just providing the space. So at the end of the day, come April of next year, we hope the Small Business Development Center will be located in the Planning and Development Department. Innovation DuPage will be located in the back of the Police Department, and we'll all be centered in the off the lobby for our finance and Planning and Development departments, and then admin will be upstairs. It will still have some community space, the Clayton room, the gymnasium, some rooms on the third floor, so we're still going to have that civic center kind of community space as well. And lastly, a smaller project in terms of total cost, but an important one, and able to lure Fresh Market to the old Dominic site. We identified the need to improve access. Right now, you can't get into the Baker Hill space directly going eastbound. This modification would allow you to do that, as well as enter the medical building and what's the health tracks. Heading westbound, you can now you would be able to enter the south part of Roosevelt Road with this improvement. So it's about a $500,000 improvement. Still has to be reviewed by the state and approved. We're hoping to be able to do it next spring. That could be delayed, but it will certainly help the commercial area as well as the commercial area on the south side of Roosevelt Road by improving access. So
How are you improving? Is there a stoplight or something?
Right now, there's a median.
Right, so what's?
So it would be a three-way. You can still come out, you just can't go left.
Turn lane,
Way.
like a new lane for
Yep,
turning either way.
correct. Yep. So those are the projects. Here's the very tentative schedule is the Civic Center renovation, again, hoping to be completed in April 2019. The parking garage, start construction May of 2019, potentially finishing in the second quarter of 2020. The streetscape would be a two-phase approach, engineering all next year, and then one phase would be in 20, the other phase would be in 21. And then the train station is much further off. Again, if grant funds are allocated, it would be a construction schedule 2025, maybe completion in 2027. So I'll turn it over to Christina. She can talk a little bit about the financial.
Where would you put the Baker Hill modification?
Where would we put it?
Yeah, I was assuming that would be given this a small dollar value, and the implications that it would help that shopping center stay in business, which seemed to be that would be a higher priority project.
Yeah, I would think it probably is. We're trying to get that done next year. Ideally, it'll happen at the same time that Fresh Market is ready to open.
Right.
Sorry, Pete's is ready to open. Thank you. Pete's Market, it's not even Pete's Fresh Market anymore. So we're hoping to align it sometime next spring.
Part of it comes with getting the approvals from the state, because we have to, obviously Roosevelt's a state road, so we have to get their blessing for anything that we would do to that.
Then would they be responsible? Roosevelt's a state highway.
Yes.
Correct.
So they'd be responsible for maintaining it and everything like that once you put it in?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to talk about the numbers. So Just a little background on our current capital projects fund. This is the fund that really provides funding for all of our infrastructure programs outside of our water and sewer service, which would be in the water and sewer fund. And so that fund, this is 2017 data, 51% of revenues in that fund is property tax. The next biggest portion is utility taxes at 27%, real estate transfer taxes at 11%, grants at 4%, and then 7% of just other remaining revenue. So one of the things as we've gone down this road, especially for evaluating any capital project or any change to what we are doing in our capital program, we always look for cost savings and other ways to mitigate the costs of our capital projects. So we are always looking for whatever grants we can get for capital projects. You know, the two projects Mark mentioned earlier, Crescent Boulevard and Hawthorne both received grant funds. Park Boulevard, which is currently under construction, we're getting grant funds for that. Taylor Street Underpass, so wherever there's opportunities to receive grant funds to lower the cost, we certainly do so. We also have looked at moving more engineering work in-house to reduce our contractual costs. We closely monitor our contracts. We have engineers that are closely monitoring our contractors to make sure that they're doing the work on time and within scope. So one of the reasons that we need to look at a new funding source is our utility taxes. And so into our capital projects fund, there are 3 utility taxes. There's our electricity tax, our gas tax, and our telecommunications tax. And so electricity and gas tax are based on usage, so therms for gas and kilowatt hours for electricity. And as we all have gotten more efficient washers, dryers, dishwashers, refrigerators, the amount of taxes we actually collect for those are going down, which is great for consumers and great for the environment, but has an impact on our budget. The other tax that has been declining is our telecommunications tax. And you all may sit there like me and say, I pay a $200 cell phone bill, why is your telecommunications tax going down? We only get telecommunications tax on a landline portion of your bill. So if you have your phone through your cables provider, we do not get a tax for that. And then your cell phone bill, only a very small portion of that bill is actually the phone. Most of it is data and text services and those things. So it wouldn't qualify to have tax on that. And people are also getting rid of their landlines and transitioning to mainly cell phone use. And so that's one of the reasons that tax has declined quite greatly. And so back in 2008, we were collecting $2.5 million annually in revenue. And in 2017, we only collected $1.9 million in utility taxes. One of the other reasons that we're looking at a new revenue source, or the food and beverage tax, is there's really no desire to increase the property tax burden for residents. So over the past few years, the village board has frozen or limited the property tax levy to the capital fund. And so you can see on the graph, since 2013, the village has saved its residents over about $254,000 on their property tax bills collected. So this is just a summary of the needs. Mark went over these projects in detail, but the total need comes out to about $15.8 to $26.2 million of project scope, depending on how the projects come in as they are further moved down the road and further refined the design. So one thing to highlight too is the proposed food and beverage tax is not the only funding mechanism for these projects. We would be funding this with about 24% of current funds, so funds that are already in our budget. We are anticipating about $14.5 million of grants, and then the remainder of the revenue would be coming from the food and beverage tax. And so one of the reasons that you might notice that if you look at the prior slide, which says that our max need is 26.2, and why this is much greater is we would be issuing bonds for these projects, so there obviously would be an interest cost associated with doing these as well.
So this new revenue on that pie chart?
So that would be the
25.4, is that the food and tax?
Yes.
Over
20 years.
Over 20 years.
Yes.
And where's the bond interest?
So the bond would be, we'd be using these revenues basically to pay the bonds back. This conglomeration of funding is basically what makes our capital fund have a positive balance at the end of the day instead of a deficit balance. And so as Mark has mentioned, the village board has discussed how to fund these projects over the past, I'd say, 6 to 9 months, and really gave direction to start looking at a proposed food and beverage tax. One thing that we did discuss with the board is we would be including in this ordinance that it would sunset in 20 years after the bonds were paid off. So what is the proposed food and beverage tax? So it's a 1.5% tax on the purchase of prepared food, beverages, and alcohol for immediate consumption, as well as on packaged alcohol at retail. And so our estimates show that this would raise about $825,000 to $1.2 million on an annual basis. I'm saying things that would be exempt from the tax would be your common grocery items, Cheerios, eggs, milk, those things. And then typically, most communities that implement food and beverage also exempt not-for-profit. So we're not taxing hot lunch at schools and things like that. So it's just a couple of examples, you know, to calculate out and say what the tax would really mean on a bill. So if you went to a restaurant, a $50 bill, there would be a 75-cent tax added to the total bill. If you purchased a cup of coffee for $3, you would add 5 cents to the total bill. And if you purchased a case of beer for $15, you would add 23 cents to the total bill. So the food and beverage tax is common among the neighbors. Some examples here: Downers Grove at 1%, Lombard next door at 2%. Naperville actually has a different tax depending on if you're going to a restaurant downtown or elsewhere in Naperville, 1.5% downtown, 1% elsewhere. So what are some other options besides doing a food and beverage tax? We could look at a hybrid of food and beverage tax versus home rule sales tax. That would be a 0.75 food and beverage tax with a 0.25 home rule sales tax. If we wanted to just do a home rule sales tax instead of a food and beverage tax, we'd have to have a 0.5% home rule sales tax increase. Or if we decided to not do a tax increase at all, we would just be foregoing the projects.
What's the homeroom sales tax? Is that like just purchasing sales tax we pay anywhere?
Yes,
What else?
yes. So there's two things that are exempt from home rule sales tax, well, three things I should say. So what's exempt from home rule sales tax is vehicle sales, your common grocery items, so your Cheerios, and which, you know, the food and beverage tax would also exempt. And then prescription drugs and medical devices are also exempt from home rule sales tax. So what are the next steps? So this is the last of 3 community meetings that we've been holding to inform and solicit feedback from the community. The next step is a village board workshop on August 27th. That's really where we're just going to present much of the same presentations to the board and anyone else from the public that would come. And then we are also discussing, as Mark mentioned, our 2019 capital plan, which also does include a look at the 5-year capital plan. If this continues moving forward, we would imagine having a first reading of the ordinance on September 10th. First reading is a non-binding reading. It's an opportunity for the public to come and give input. The board may, but is not required to take a straw poll vote, which would indicate how they would vote. And then we would have a second reading and adoption on September 24th, the second village regular meeting in September. And then we would be anticipating a March start date for the food and beverage tax.